definitely that's what we're hearing from some analysts on the ground. The market has come down quite a bit over the last week and was down 2% last week, and today was down another 1/3%. So there is that view that some of the major gains that investors from outside have made in Nigeria, I think they're beginning to reconsider those their positions in Nigeria and looking to invest in other markets for now. So yes, indeed, I think there is some, to some extent, that impact is on this. We're seeing that impact on this market. Joining us to give us his thoughts on what we're seeing in Nigeria is Olukayode Akindele, who is Managing Director at Greengate Strategic Partners. Thanks, Olukayode, for joining us on the show. Right, like I was just saying, there is the view that a lot of money is leaving Nigeria to develop markets because of the obvious situations we have on the African continent now with Egypt, and of course just general risk aversion. Do you agree with that thought, that that's what I was saying?
I agree to an extent. I think there is part of that with what's happening in Egypt and what's happening in Tunisia as well. There is a move away from some of these frontier markets. Mm. But I also think in Nigeria, the specific case is what we saw was in the beginning of the year, quite a lot of portfolio investors, especially international ones, are coming to the market. Mm-hmm. And a lot of domestic investors who are underwater in their portfolios are using the opportunity of the rise in the markets to make some profit and cover some of the losses they've made over the last year or two.
Mm-hmm. And some others also mentioned that obviously if we look at the strength of Nigeria's rally, I mean, many banks, for instance, have done 20%. So there might be, to some extent, a case for reallocating because you're beginning to get overweight in some of these companies. But let's move on. There's also the issue of politics, and it seems like many investors, particularly from outside, took their eyes off the ball on that because we do have an election in April, and last year there was the view generally from analysts that, you know, this first part of the year will probably be slow because people will be looking at elections.
Yes, I think a lot of investors have taken quite a long-term view in terms of the elections, in the sense that with the big win by the President Jonathan in the primaries, that he's more likely going to be the front runner for April. And so from a federal level, they don't really see that much change happening in that level. I think most of the big fights in the political scene are going to be at state and National Assembly level.
Let's look at some company news now. Guaranty Trust Bank, we're hearing, should have a board meeting at the end of this week to consider their accounts. So obviously that's kicking off the bank earnings season. Sometime next week we should see those results. What are your expectations from that one, and what impact do you think it's going to have in setting the tone for earnings season this year?
To be honest, I don't think Guaranty Trust Bank is one of the banks that has done very well since the banking crisis, because it's seen as a bank with good corporate governance and with a good strategy going forward. And I think that the results are going to show that. And but I feel that a lot of those good results have already been priced into the GTB price. I think what really is going to show where the market is going is when you start looking at some of the rescue bank results, in the sense of how well they fare.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned rescue banks, and I was just going to ask your thoughts, something that past many analysts that have come, your thoughts on if there is value in buying into the equity of these banks. Obviously, some banks are interested in acquiring these banks to get a stronger geographical footprints and for other strategic issues. But as an investor, would you buy any of these rescue banks with what you've seen so far?
In the long-term view, you expect the share price to improve with new management and a new strategy going forward. But then there are the issues of possible dilution from these new investors if they do come in the recapitalization exercise. And also in the sense that a lot of these rescue banks are going to be seriously under-leveraged because of AMCON has taken away most of their non-performing loans. And you find that with the new equity injection, they're going to be under-leveraged. And there's going to be a pressure on the new management to try and grow their risk-weighted assets at a rate to try and justify the capital injection they've made, which could lead to some issues going forward. But I think in terms of a 5-10 year horizon, they'll probably be better. But then there's the possible dilution, and possible new management pressure.
That dilution is something that many analysts have also brought up, and I think that's one of the reasons many people are cautious. But let's look at the MOUs. Many banks are likely to announce memorandum of understanding with potential investors, which is obviously the first step to having shareholders approve any deal. Let's talk about the significance of that MOU right now. Is it really worth anything, or is it just giving us a direction? Because at the end of the day, really, it's the shareholders say that really matters, isn't it?
It is, but the MOU will show that both the board, which is supposed to represent the shareholders, and the new investors have reached an agreement on general principles. So if they reach an agreement on general principles, then they're going to strive, which will be under the MOU, they've got to try and agree all other issues before putting forward the shareholders. I still think there might be some problems when you get to the shareholder meetings, because there's some minority shareholders who do not like the fact that they're probably going to be heavily diluted, and some of these new investors are coming in. So there are some issues there. I think the regulators, especially CBN, as well as the financial advisors to CBN on this issue, have to do quite a lot of work on the shareholders to carry them along.
And what impact do you think the announcements, because we are expecting some announcements this week, what impact do you think it's going to have on the share prices of these stocks, if at all? It's a positive, isn't it?
It is a positive. I think there'll be a positive effect on the share price for the banks that announce, at least in the short term. But I think then you see profit taking and the share price going back down, because everyone sees it as a first step and shows that there's progress. But until you get the shareholder approval, you're back going to be still where you are.
So still fingers crossed on that.
Yes.
All right, thanks so much for your thoughts there. Olukayode Akindele, CEO of Greengate Strategic Partners, giving us his thoughts on the market.